Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Bronte and this week it's Halloween special. This week I'm gonna do like a Halloweeny sort of vibe. And I'm going to talk about my favourite spooky books. I have this really big pile of books next to me and I'm going to talk you through my favourites, and then I thought we would do some stuff in my hobbies journal because this is this week and I haven't written anything. It's Friday afternoon, so yeah, I thought we could fill some of this out, and that's the plan. So let's talk about books first because I think that's the best thing to do. So, just put this here. You can see I've got done all my staging for the Halloweeny vibe. My little sequins that came with my Megan Rihanna order. Okay, so books, right? So I love fantasy books. I read a lot. 99% of what I read is fantasy or science fiction, and I thought this would be a nice opportunity to kind of share with you some books I've read in the past couple of years that I feel really suit this time of year, and I've sorted them into kind of rough categories. So first up, I'm going to talk to you about some science fiction books that I love. I have 3. Okay, so this is a bit grubby, sorry. This first book I've read twice. I absolutely love this. I actually want to reread it again. Also, I probably will be saying this a lot. I'm a big rereader. I like things that I don't know, I find it comforting to reread favourites. Like if I read a book and I really enjoy it, I know I'll read it again at some point in my life. So yeah, Meddling Kids, I read it 1 year, I don't know how long ago, quite a long time ago, maybe like 4 years ago. And then I read it again, I think the following year, because I just loved it. So this is like a really clever take on Scooby-Doo. You might get the hint from Meddling Kids. It's kind of like Scooby-Doo crossed with H.P. Lovecraft. So a group of friends who kind of solve mysteries as kids come across like real monsters, and it kind of traumatizes them, and their friendship group splits up, and this book is set when they kind of reunite as adults. So yeah, I think this is really great. I can't remember where it's set. I think it's set in like upstate New York, like where the H.P. Lovecraft books are set. But I don't know, I loved this. One of my friends told me about this book, and yeah, he'd read it and thought, oh, you would like this book, and oh my god, I loved this book. So yeah, I definitely would recommend this. Also, all of the books I'm going to talk about today I have read myself. I did think about including some books that I want to read soon, but I don't know, I just feel more confident in telling you about books that I've read and I know that I have enjoyed. So yeah. Okay. Next up is one of my favourite books of all time, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This was made into a film, an Alex Garland film with Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac. Is it Oscar Isaac or Oscar Isaacs? I don't know. Anyway, they made it into a film, and the film was fine, but as an adaptation it was absolutely terrible. So shame on you, Alex Garland. But this book is incredible. It's very short, and it is part of a trilogy, but in actual fact this stands alone. This is an incredible science fiction. The first time I read this, I've read this multiple times, I think I've read this twice too. The first time I read this, I could only read it on the train to and from work because it creeped me out so much. This one is kind of like an eco horror, I guess. The trilogy is called the Southern Reach trilogy, and this book is set after some kind of disaster, and you know, like this unfolds throughout the trilogy, but there's been some kind of disaster in an area that is called the Southern Reach, and teams of scientists keep going in to explore the area, and they never come out. And this is set with one of the expeditions that goes in. I can't remember what number they are. They're like something like the expedition number 30. And there's 4 women that go in as part of the team, and we never find out their names. The main character is the biologist. And yeah, basically very strange things happen in the Southern Reach, and there's all sorts of strange animals and plants, and it's so good. There's a quote on the back from Stephen King that's creepy and fascinating. So yeah, it's I can't even describe to you how much I love this book. Also, I will tell you that the first time I read this book, I was listening to Beach House's album Depression Cherry on repeat. So whenever I listen to that Beach House album now, it makes me think of this book, and I kind of have these like very vivid pictures in my mind of what it's like in the Southern Reach. Yeah, it's so, oh no wait, Southern Reach is like, okay, sorry. The Southern Reach is like the government agency that is in charge of this area, and the area is called Area X. My bad, I need to reread this again. So yeah, whenever I listen to that Beach House album, it makes me think of Area X, and I have this like vision in my head of what it's like, which is kind of cool. I think that's a sign of a good author, because Jeff Vandermeer is amazing. Okay, and then the third science fiction is The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. I read this earlier in the year and I really liked it. This is the US edition. I don't think it has like a UK edition. I couldn't find this in a shop, so I got it on Amazon. Because I really wanted to read this. I actually have another Caitlin Starling book to talk to you about in a minute. But this is, if you're claustrophobic, maybe don't read this, because this is like a scary cave on a like alien planet. And there's a woman who goes, it's kind of in a way similar to Annihilation. I think it's compared to Annihilation on the back. Yes. The creeping dread of Annihilation. There's this one woman, she goes into a cave as part of like a caving expedition, and is connected to the surface with like via like a intercom, I guess, and it's just kind of quite like a psychological sort of thing. Like, it's not super scary and nothing necessarily that scary happens, but like it says on the back, it has like a creeping dread, which is definitely what Annihilation has as well. It's something that somehow kind of gets under your skin, and I will say Annihilation got under my skin a lot more than this one, but I really enjoyed this. I think I read this in like 3 days, but it's quite long. It's like 400 pages, but yeah, I read it in a short amount of time, so I would recommend. Okay, and then my next, I split these into categories. So that was science fiction. I know that's not much of a category, but whatever. Then my next category is much more specific. I have like creepy houses as my next category. So 2 of these I have in paperback and 2 I have read on Kindle. So I just put them here on sticky tabs to remind me, and I will put a picture of the cover on the screen. Okay, so first up is The Cruel Dark by B. Northwick. I got this, full disclosure, I got this as an ARC, an advanced reader's copy, from NetGalley, and yeah, so I got the book for free on my Kindle, the ebook for free, and yeah, I don't know, I was supposed to like write a review, whatever. I love this book. I really loved it. I would totally recommend. So this book is set in the 1920s. It actually, okay, let me also say, this book comes out on Halloween. So if you're watching this on Monday 30th, when this video goes live, it's out tomorrow. If you're watching this after then, it's out. So yeah, it's set in the 1920s with a woman who goes to work at a spooky house, and she's kind of haunted in this house, and the mysterious man who owns this house is very like dark and brooding. So this is kind of like, The Cruel Dark is also definitely like a romance type book, because there is some spice but not too much. And yeah, I don't know, this had a lot of great vibes. This book is what I was hoping Belladonna would be, and Belladonna felt, I think lots of people like Belladonna, but for me it felt totally flat. I really didn't enjoy it. I thought it was really dry and just like, I just didn't enjoy it. I finished it and I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, The Cruel Dark, I really enjoyed it, and I think I would like to get a copy of the paperback, because I think I would read it again. I would definitely read it again. And yeah, there's quite a lot of twists and turns to the plot. It's very well plotted, and there's quite a lot of twists and turns, and I really kind of enjoyed reading it. And I've read it pretty quickly. So yeah, I would totally recommend The Cruel Dark by B. Northwick. And then my other sticky tab is Starling House by, I forget who it's by, I'll put it on the screen. I'm also reading this as an ARC, but it also comes out on Halloween. This one is so good, and actually I will say I'm also only 50% through the book, but I'm really enjoying it. This again has like a bit of an H.P. Lovecraft vibe with like weird monsters, but it's set in like a very like rundown like coal town in Kentucky, which I think is a great setting for this book, because a lot of this sort of fiction is set, you know, in like Massachusetts or Vermont or something, and I think that the setting in Kentucky is quite an interesting pivot, and it works so well. And we follow a main character who is quite reminiscent of Alex from Ninth House, or oh my goodness, I forget the name of the main character in Book of Night, but similar to her as well. And she goes to work at Starling House, which is a kind of a this house has notoriety in the area for being haunted and for like bad things happening to people who go there, but she's very desperate for money to send her brother to a private school, so she takes the job. And yeah, she's been working there for a little while now. I'm halfway through, so I think stuff's gonna start happening soon, and I'm really excited for it. So yes, Starling House. I think, no, I'm not going to say who it's by because I can't remember. Again, yeah, it will have been on the screen. Then my other two picks are Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one, I think I read this at the end of 2020. No, the end of 2021, I think. It doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah, end of 2021. And I want to reread this. It was so good. This has like this is like another creepy house. This one is set in Mexico. So this is one of those books where like nothing that much happens, but it's so good, and it is very creepy too. This is kind of, the house has sentience. I don't want to spoil it, but it's really good. Read it if you haven't already. And then the last spooky house book is The Death of Jane Lawrence. This is also by Caitlin Starling. Again, this is the US edition. I managed to find this at Forbidden Planet, and they did have the UK edition too, but I thought this one was nicer, so I bought this one instead. And I think it had a couple of pounds off or something. I don't know. Anyway. So this one, Jane Lawrence, Jane marries a man who lives in a very creepy house. And is it that his only so this one is that she marries a man kind of out of it's like a marriage of convenience, and he has this very spooky kind of crumbling house that she is not allowed to visit. But unfortunately, she ends up stranded in the rain at his house, and he's completely kind of transformed overnight and becomes somewhat like a different person. And then when the next day arrives, he's the same. He goes back to how he was before, and Jane kind of has to unravel the mysteries of this house. This one, when I first read it, I wasn't so impressed, but in actual fact, now I've read more things from this sort of similar genre, it's really good, and I would like to read it again so I can kind of reassess my original opinion on this book, because yeah, I don't know, I think about this book a lot, and I think it influences like choices I make with reading now, I guess. Like, I don't know, yeah, I thought this was a great one. And look at this cover, I mean, come on, it's amazing. This cover actually reminds me of, there's a new Leigh Bardugo book coming out next year called The Familiar, and actually The Familiar has a similar sort of cover with these kind of like hands in like ruffly cuffs with like gold jewelry and like a black background. The colours are similar. I'll put it on the screen. I'm really excited to read that book, but that's not for today. Okay, so yeah, that's The Death of Jane Lawrence. So my next little category is going to be like a dark romance category. So I totally appreciate this genre, it's not for everybody. I have recently got into this genre. I think since I have gotten my Kindle, and I could have picked loads of books to include in this, but I've only picked, well, 3, but these 2 are a duology. So let's talk about this one first. So this is S.T. Gibson, A Dowry of Blood. This is like a retelling of The Brides of Dracula, and it's how do I describe this? It has a lot of spice. It's written like one long poem. S.T. Gibson writes in such an incredible way. It's kind of like reading a long poem. I loved this. Again, I read this really quickly. I will say that, like, I think there's some trigger warnings in the front, so if you're thinking of reading this, like, check the trigger warnings, because it's kind of like that Dracula is actually very abusive, and these people have to kind of escape from him and his ways. I don't know how to phrase it. But yeah, I thought this was amazing. I think mainly for the writing. The writing is so great. And I have another S.T. Gibson book to talk about later. So that's A Dowry of Blood. And then the other book I wanted to talk about was, well, there are 2 books. Hollow and Legend by Karina Hall. Her name is spelled Halle. So this is a duology. I have read Hollow, and Legend comes out the day I'm filming. The day this video will be live, Legend will be out. So I will be probably reading it as you're watching this video. I read Hollow at the beginning of this month, and it's so good. So Hollow is a retelling of Sleepy Hollow. And it's very spicy. A lot of Karina Hall's books, her books are very spicy. But yeah, it was great. I just, her books are a lot of fun, and I particularly liked this one because it's the Sleepy Hollow retelling. I think it's my favourite one of hers that I've read so far. And I think she has kind of gotten the characters really great, like really accurate. And I like the fact that she's, I don't know, she does this thing with her Instagram account where she kind of puts all these little videos and like vignettes together of the characters and like what she imagines them to be like and stuff, and I really like that. So yeah, I don't know, I've really enjoyed reading these things on Kindle Unlimited. They're like, I don't know, they're pretty easy to read, if you know what I mean. But it's just fun, isn't it? Like, that's what you should read for. I used to read a lot more like lit fic and like things like Atessa Moshfegh and I don't know what else, like Sophie McIntosh and Daisy Johnson and things like that. And I've really moved away from that in the past 2 years because reading for me is escapism, and I don't really want to read about like things that are happening in the world right now. It's just too much. So yeah, escapism is the key, and these are great for that. So yeah, I would recommend a lot of her books actually. If you want to know what, because she's written like 70 books, it's ridiculous. She's so prolific. But if you want to know some of the other books of hers that I've read, if you're thinking about reading her books, leave me a comment and I'll tell you which ones I have read, because I've read like 6 of hers recently. So yeah. Let's move on, because this is going to be really long. Okay, my next category is also a very vague one, which I've scribbled down as like modern. So I have 2 Stephen Graham Jones books. I think he writes so amazingly. So we have The Only Good Indians and My Heart is a Chainsaw. This one is a standalone, and this one is the first in a trilogy. The first 2 are out now. The Only Good Indians is about a group of Native American men who kill an elk off season and are then haunted by said elk. It's incredible. It's like weird, and just so, his writing is so, I don't know what the word for it is. It's like visceral. Like, yeah, they're slowly like picked off by this, like the ghost of this elk. It's so cool. And I think, again, this is one of those that when I read it, I was a bit like, not sure what I think of that. But now in hindsight, I can be like, whoa, that was really good. So yeah, that's a Stephen Graham Jones. And then My Heart is a Chainsaw by the same author. This trilogy is so clever. The second one is called Don't Fear the Reaper, and then we don't know what the third one is because it's not out yet. This is like a take on, it's like a very clever tongue-in-cheek take on like the slasher genre, with a main character who is obsessed with slasher films, like horror films, and who essentially ends up living through one. It's very weird. There's a lot of it about gentrification and like like the upheaval in small communities when they start being gentrified by outsiders, and yeah, it's very, very good. I really, really enjoyed this. My only beef with his writing is that sometimes the action is so fast paced that I actually miss things, and I'm like, hang on, wait, what just happened? And I have to kind of reread whole pages because I'm just like, hang on, did what happened? Did what just happened actually happen? Like, is that what just happened? So yeah, that's my only beef with his writing, but like, it's not like a big issue. I think that's just me, because I do tend to read quite quickly, especially with something like this, like fast-paced books. I'm like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? So yeah, this has a really explosive ending, and the second book is also really good. So I would definitely recommend his writing. Stephen Graham Jones has written other things too, but I haven't read any of his other stuff, but I suspect it's just as good. And then lastly is Grady Hendrix, who is another very like tongue-in-cheek author who writes these kind of amazing like genre twisting novels. So I've read 2 of his books. Have I read 2 of his books? Yeah, 2. But I chose this one because this is the one that I enjoyed more. This is such a smart take on like a vampire novel. It's very much like, if you've ever seen Fright Night, it's quite like Fright Night. But Grady Hendrix always writes from a female perspective, and normally that grates on me when men do that, but actually he does it very, very well. And it's kind of centers around this group of like suburban, I think it's set in Charleston, yeah, in Georgia. Or is that Georgia? I'm under the impression that it is because of the peach. Anyway, yeah, it's set in Charleston with this group of like book club mums who are really into like pulpy like horror romance type novels, and true crime too. Yeah, true crime. And a vampire ends up moving in down the street, and they kind of club together to slay the vampire. And oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. I think it's set over quite a few years too. Yeah, I read this quite a few years ago, so I should really remind myself of it, but I would totally recommend Grady Hendrix. He's also written a book that came out, I'm waiting for the paperback, which is called How to Sell a Haunted House, and I've also read by him The Final Girls Support Group, which is a very clever take on the like final girl trope. So yep, that's that one. And then my last category, oh my goodness, so sorry guys, I'm sorry if this is super long. My last category is just like great autumn vibes. Not necessarily like spooky not necessarily like spooky, but just like incredible vibes. Okay, I'm just gonna drink some tea. That's not my finest cup of tea, but whatever. I decided to have decaf instead, and decaf tea is never as good as it. Okay, so my first pick I'm going to talk about is An Education in Malice, and I'm so sorry this is not out until February 2024. I got this book as an ARC, but this is my most anticipated release of 2024. I will absolutely be buying a copy, and if I can find any special editions anywhere, I'll probably be buying those too. This is so good. So An Education in Malice, I'm actually realising a lot of these books are retellings. An Education in Malice is by S.T. Gibson, who wrote A Dowry of Blood that I talked about earlier. And it's a retelling of Carmilla, which is if you don't know it, Carmilla is a vampire story that predates Dracula. So it's a very old story. And it's kind of got secret history vibes. It's set in a college in the fall, in the autumn, whatever, in America. And we follow the main character, whose name is Laura, and she starts at this university and is able to take like an advanced class in poetry. She's like in a class that's, everybody else in the class is in like senior year or whatever. And the class is taught by this very enigmatic female professor who is, I don't know, she's like got this magnetic personality. She's a similar sort of character to Julian in The Secret History. And Laura and another girl in her class, Carmilla, kind of form this rivalry for the professor's attention and to be her favourite. And yeah, it's so great. There are vampires, there's sapphic romance, it's so good. It's not very long, and I again read it in like 2-3 days because I loved it so much. I think basically S.T. Gibson, pretty much anything she writes, I'll read it now, because everything of hers that I've read already has been amazing. So, An Education in Malice, I'm really sorry, but add it to your TBRs for 2024. It's so good. It's so good. Alternatively, apply for an ARC on NetGalley. That's what I did. And I actually didn't think I would get approved for it, but I did. So, win-win. Okay, so this is one of my favorites, Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is set in at Yale University, New Haven, and it deals with, there's secret societies at Yale who practice magic, and our main character is kind of charged with regulating those magical practices. It's so good. I've read this twice, and I just I love Leigh Bardugo's writing. I've read everything she's written, but this one is by far my favourite. I don't really know what to say about this book apart from just, yeah, it's just so good. I love the main character. She's not what you would expect, and just the way this is written is superb. So this is also part of a trilogy. The first 2 books are out. We have Ninth House, and then Hellbent came out at the beginning of this year. And I'm really hoping that she announces the 3rd book at some point soon. Maybe it will come out in autumn next year, because she has a new release that's scheduled for like April. That's a standalone that I mentioned earlier. Anyway, read this book. I love it. Again, there's a great quote from Stephen King: impossible to put down. It really was impossible to put down. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So then I have, next up, Bitter Thorn by Kat Dunn. I read this on audiobook and then went to buy a paperback copy, and actually managed to get a signed copy, which is very nice. This is one of my favourite reads of this year so far. This is just so great. This is like a, quite like a, it's like a fairy tale vibe to this. You know, witch who lives in a castle, and there's strange happenings at the castle, and I don't know, I want to go through this, reread it, and underline loads of stuff, because this is like, just the vibe of this book was so magical. I absolutely loved this. I really love Kat Dunn's writing. I think she's a really amazing writer. This is the only book of hers that I have read. I think she does have a trilogy that's like a young adult trilogy. I don't know if you'd call this young adult or not. Anyway, Bitter Thorn was just so great. I loved it. And yeah, witches and another like sapphic romance, crumbling castle. Yeah, the vibes are great. So then lastly, I want to talk about A Discovery of Witches. This is, you know, this is not a new book. I think this came out in like, when did this come out? Let's see. So this came out in 2011, which is like 12 years ago. So this is, you know, not a new book. But I really loved this trilogy, the All Souls trilogy. I think if I were to read this again, I would only read this one. Not because I didn't enjoy the others, but like they're all so long. Like this is a long book. And I have this like crappy copy that I got in a charity shop. So the spine is kind of faded and all this, you know, cracked and everything. But yeah, I don't know. This has like a really great like dark academia vibe particularly at the beginning of the book. And I actually think this trilogy was my gateway into like fantasy romance, because this is, you know, fantasy with a romance aspect to it. It's not the main driving point of the plot at all, but it's there. So yeah, I don't even know how to describe this book. There's 3 different groups of magical creature. There's witches, demons, and vampires, and the main character Diana is a witch, and she falls in love with Matthew, who is a vampire, and it's kind of forbidden for them to be together, but they fall in love anyway. And yeah, I don't know, it's them kind of discovering the origins of all of these different creatures, and oh, so great. It's so great that the vampire lore in this is so well like researched and thought through. I hope that Deborah Harkness writes more, because I don't think she's really written anything else apart from this trilogy, and then there is a spin-off from this trilogy, which I have also read and then really enjoyed. Whew, phew, okay, that is the book rundown. I'm so sorry, that's probably way too long, but I really wanted to talk to you about all of my favourite spooky books. So then, I think what I might do is do a little bit of work in here. I'm just going to drink some more tea. Bear with me a second. So I always write in my hobbies journal with this, with the Hobonichi Jetstream, and I really enjoy writing with this pen. I love how fluffy it makes the pages. And I think for next year I will write with this pen in my new hobbies journal all year. Okay, so what happened this week? So I ordered some new books because I got rid of some books, so obviously that means I had to order some more, right? So I ordered House of Hunger and Ink Blood Sister Scribe. Those arrived on Monday, and then on Tuesday another book arrived, which was In These Hallowed Halls, which is a dark academia anthology, which is released by Titan Books, the publishing house Titan, which they often publish some of my favourites. Yeah, that arrived on Tuesday. I haven't gone into that yet because I'm reading another arc, Starling House. I'm reading Starling House. And when did I start Starling House? I think I started that on Tuesday too. Let's put it in. Okay, and then on Tuesday I also started reading another book, which is, I'm embarrassed to say that I'm reading Haunting Adeline by, I don't even know who it's by. Don't read this book, guys. I'm not recommending this book at all. This is the book that was like banned on Amazon because of its like trigger warnings, content, etc. I'm just kind of reading it because I want to know the drama behind, like, why is this book got so much drama associated with it? It's not a good book. It's really not a good book, but I'm going to read it. I'm going to finish it. It's part of a duology. I will not be reading the second one, but it was on Kindle Unlimited and I wanted to know. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, don't read it. If you want to read it, please read the trigger warnings because it's a lot. It's like an episode of Criminal Minds, but like way worse. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. I'm not going to stop talking about it, but I'm going to write down that I'm reading it just so I know. Okay, and then I'm trying to think what else happened this week. Oh, I got approved for another arc. When was that? I think I was approved for that yesterday. I'm just going to check in my cousin. I need to stop applying for arcs because I have so many other books I want to read. Yes, I did. I got approved to read The Gilded Crown by Marianne Gordon. Another cool sapphic one that's a bit, I don't really know. I was trying to think of something to liken it to, but I'm not sure what I would liken it to. Let's just put this down now. I've forgotten the author's name already. How did I spell it back here? Marianne. Okay, this has mixed reviews, so we'll see. We will see. I thought the kind of premise of it made it sound good, so we'll see. Yeah. And then I think that's it. I don't really have much to say this week. Oh, I'll write. I went to see a friend earlier and I read Starling House on the way to and from meeting her, and stuff's happening. So I'm gonna mention that the plot is moving along because the beginning is kind of slow, but not in a bad way. Okay, so that's it for this week so far. I will just briefly tell you, I use the left-hand page with the dates to kind of put day specific things. So, you know, like when I was approved for an ARC on Thursday, so I put that on Thursday. And then this side of the page I used to write reviews and like notes about anything. So last week I talked about some sweater quantities of yarn that I bought home. So yeah, this is also supposed to be, I do call it a hobbies journal rather than a reading journal, because I intend to talk about knitting, but I just mainly end up talking about books, to be honest. So maybe I should just cut my losses and call it a reading journal and put knitting notes in the back. But we'll see. But yeah, anyway, sorry. I did 2 sweater quantities. I wrote about those, and then I wrote a review of Tonight I Burn by Catherine J. Adams, which I got as an ARC. I think that's out on the 5th of November. Actually, that makes a lot of sense that it's out on the 5th of November on Fire Night. Anyway, okay, yeah. So, okay, so here I wrote a review of Belladonna, and then I did a few notes about my stash clear out of my knitting, my yarn stash. And then I have reviews of Hollow and an education in Malice. Yeah, that's just how it goes. I record when I start and finish books, and like, yeah, what I thought of the books and that sort of thing. So that's it. Okay, this is kind of a chaotic end to the video, but I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoyed the book chat. If you have recommendations for books you think I would like based on knowing that I like all of the ones that I've shown you today, please leave me book recommendations. I love a book recommendation, and I would love to know if you have favorites in this sort of spooky fantasy genre. Yeah, thank you so much if you're still watching. This has kind of been a ramble, but I will speak to you next week. Next week will be October wrap-up. So we'll look through my cousin and my hobbies journal and my common planner, and yeah, I'd love it if you could join me for that next week. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will speak to you then. Bye!